Hey guys. Hey guys, how is everyone? Can't talk properly. I haven't had a coffee yet today, so I'm not guaranteeing performance if I need to demo stuff. So the goal today is just do a bit of a Q&A. I'm just going to run through like a basic handstand session, and then more of a balance session. I am going to go to the gym and train some strength in a bit, so I'm not going to do too much strength stuff, but if there's any questions come up with the strength work, I'll demo stuff then. We have had one question about training on P-bars, so I'll cover that first. I did put a post up only about an hour ago asking if anyone's got any questions. So it's basically how do we handstand on P-bars compared to the floor, especially if you've only done floor work. So basically, if you want to start handstand on something different than you trained on, I would just go backwards in terms of your steps on how you learn to balance. It's very different if you've already balanced on, like if you could balance as a child growing up and you've never had to learn on something new, then picking up the P-bars or doing something is going to be a bit weird. And because you haven't been through that learning process as an adult, you might find it's tricky to pick up something new. So all I would do is then just start back with the most basic handstand drills that you know, on whatever surface you're doing. So this is common to go onto P-bars, handstand blocks, things like that. So you can do the same thing. So basically, let's demo it on blocks. Have I got blocks? We can use the yoga blocks. So I'm just going to kick up to a normal handstand, but I'm going to kick up on the P-bars instead of the floor, and just do a heel pull. So if you don't know what heel pull is, basically we want to be pulling away from the wall using the if your hands on the floor, it would be your fingertips. On the P-bars, you just push like this with your arms. So it's just basically creating balance and control lower down, closer to the floor. But the goal is to get that signal that you're using your hands to talk to your feet. So if I'm going to pull off the wall, maybe I need to do it in this corner. Rosie, jump up. So I kick up to the wall here, heels against the wall. So I'm bringing the legs together, so I'm squeezing them together. So I'm not allowed to kick off the wall. So I'm not allowing myself to push off the wall or use the wall in any way. And then I'm just going to pull off. And then I'm going to go back to the wall. So I'm doing this using my hands to pull on the bars. So because the bars don't move, I can pull myself around and pull myself off and on. So we can do that back to wall, which is obviously like the heel pull drill when you're on the floor and you're using the fingertips. It would be exactly the same as if I try and handstand on these blocks. So if I hold these like handstand blocks, the only difference is with the yoga blocks, I don't wrap my fingers too much around the front of the block. I just find that makes it very top heavy. But if I'm going to use handstand blocks, I will have the hands like that and wrap the fingers around. That's really the only difference. But exactly the same principle. So now I'm just going to kick up as normal, but with heels against the wall on the blocks, and then I push into the block to bring my feet off, and then either relax or pull back with the block and the hips to drive myself back to the wall. So, and then I would do the same thing chest to wall, so you're getting both the underbalance and the overbalance. So when you're chest to wall, that's thinking about using the shoulders to pull yourself off the wall. So exactly the same on the bars. There will be a little bit of difference because you're pulling a little bit differently. But the goal is the same here. So I need something to go the other side of my hands to pull my toes off the wall. Again, I'm not kicking off the wall. So if you watch what the shoulders do, the shoulders go the other side of the hands, which pulls my toes off, and then I push up to the handstand. And then I can push back again to the wall. So shoulders, and then I push up into handstand, push back again. So if I want to get my balance on the P-bars, I would just practice repetitions of both of these. So you could get 5 to 10 repetitions with control on and off the wall. Once you get the control, I would then play around with pulling off the wall and balancing the handstand for time. So you could try and accumulate time in the position. But I would do the pulling first. Make sure you can do repetitions. It's actually a really good test to do if you're training floor handstand, P-bar handstand or anything, is just to see, like go back to those drills, even if you're doing freestanding, but go back to the heel pulls and the toe pulls and double check you can do good reps. It's something definitely that I do with new clients that come on. If I'm suspicious there's some gaps in their training somewhere, especially if they're doing harder variations, I normally take them back. Normally they can do heel pulls, but they might not be able to do toe pulls that well. So drilling the toe pull even after you've got into your freestand holds will definitely increase your catch, your balance, and then it also sets you up. So the under balance position or the shoulders forward position is the position where you are for presses, handstand push-ups, and a lot of the entries into handstand. So I definitely recommend that you practice that toe pull position and get very, very good at it. Guys, anyone on live who's got questions, just fire them out. I'm just going to keep rabbiting on until we get some questions come in. There was that main one on the P-bars. That was the main thing. So just balance either side, under balance, over balance, learn on the wall, and then the same thing freestanding. Now, the other thing that you'll start to run into though, if your P-bars aren't like this, so very close to the floor, and you suddenly go, these are my P-bars. Obviously now we have a massive difference in the height of the handstand. So you need to get comfortable getting in and out of this. I would try and learn first on lower ones and then slowly go higher and higher, especially if you're not used to P-bars. So if you've never been on P-bars before starting on this height, it probably isn't the best. But if you have no other option, you could go onto like a raised surface first and get comfortable with that. So even like the IKEA steps, this sort of height, boxes, something up here, and then slowly make your way up to this, and then start to learn the P-bars, but you're already used to the height. So you don't want to try and get used to the height and the P-bars. The best thing you can do as well is if you find a much higher ceiling or somewhere outside that has a higher wall, that way you can at least have the confidence to kick up to something. It definitely helps if you have underbalanced strength. So if you have handstand push-up strength, to be able to go into shoulder stands and things first, so here, and then start being able to push up or climb up into that upper wall in a chest to wall position, just to build the confidence and safety, and just always have a plan in terms of bail when you're that high. The cool things with these P-bars is you can turn them over as well. So I can turn them this way over. And then obviously it's a lower P-bar. You could raise that up so they're not on an angle, but it is possible to handstand on that there in that position. So that would be one way of balancing on the P-bars, but not being at the height that they are when they're on their end, like that. How can I avoid underbalancing? So underbalancing is just making sure that you are balanced. That seems simple, but you want to have enough weight in front to counterbalance what's behind the handstand. So getting very good at a toe pull is basically how you strengthen that and how you control it. Exiting and entering a handstand very slowly, or as slow as you can, will make a big difference. So I can purposely go into underbalance. So if I kick up like that, I'm now in underbalance. So I can bend the elbows, I can take the shoulders forwards and keep the feet backwards. So if I'm here, so most people try and do this at the moment because they're trying to make their shoulders really open. I prefer people to have their shoulders a little bit further forwards and more of this position. And then just practicing going towards your underbalance and coming back out to your home position. So if this is your home, there's your underbalance, there's your home position. So just practice entering and exiting that and start to make that a bigger and bigger window of balance. If that's too hard, do the same thing with your toes against the wall, pull with your shoulders, pull back. So that was just demoing on the P-bars, and that'll make the underbalance way more easier to control. And actually you want to make it your friend. So you want to get really comfortable with that. Okay, so you want to increase your strength, but you can already do, you got one arm push up and you can do a headstand. Yeah, so basically you just need to condition the position, so the actual movement. So there is some sort of carryover between other strength exercises and other positions, but basically you just need to get more time in the handstand. So chest or handstand would be the biggie. So if you can do this one with good technique, so the only things that would stop you is if you're very weak, but if you don't want to push-ups and stuff, this isn't your case, but you might find that it's a flexibility thing. So most people struggle to put their arms above their head. So if they're actually like this, they can't put their arms above their head. So to get their arms above their head is like really hard work. That's going to make your capacity to hold a handstand very short because you don't have the mobility to get into the handstand, so you're having to fight yourself. You get to the point where you can easily put your hands above your head, then you can go into a handstand. And a good test is, can you hold a handstand, whether that's against the wall or freestanding, and hold a conversation? So that's where we want to get to. So most people to start with are going to have to do their conditioning holds against the wall, just up into this chest wall position, and basically just hang out here. So do this every day, every other day. Slowly build the capacity to get into that position, and just video yourself from the side and notice if you're like this or collapsing, then obviously it's not going to be as efficient. It's going to be a harder position to hold, so you need to work out why you're collapsing. Normally it's mobility. So I would normally suggest people do a passive hang. So hang for a long duration, so you can slowly open yourself up. Cool. Yeah, I haven't checked your videos yet. I'll check them later today. After this, I go into my WhatsApp mode and check everyone's. So I'll see your press videos then. I'm excited to see those. Okay, what exercises do you recommend for balance and strength for the shoulders? So that would be the same thing for, in terms of handstands, it would be the toe pulls. So pulling off the wall with your shoulders to get nice and strong in that underbalanced position. I'd also do, if you're not doing them already, push-ups, dips, chin-ups and stuff like that. So just control all of the upper body positions and try and encourage your positions to have more weight in the upper body. So most people, when they do push-ups and crows, even some of the arm balances, they still have way too much energy and weight in their legs. And then they try and climb that weight on top, and it's like you're top heavy. So what I want to do is try and get your shoulders, your upper back, your arms, and that to take over everything. So be in control. So even like when you're doing a push-up, to planche forwards and have more load in the shoulders, then that's going to make you much more happier on your hands. So if I'm in a push-up, I could do it like this, or I could do the same thing like this. So just going forwards and pushing up into protraction at the top, just encourage lots and lots of weight and energy into the arms and shoulders, and that'll make it much easier to increase that. But just make sure you've got the strength for the push-ups and the dips and that sort of thing. And then chest or handstand time, get up to 60, 90 seconds in a chest or handstand, being able to hold a conversation there. And then the transitions. So you can start with basic transitions like crow, squat crow, headstand ones. So like this type of thing. So squat, crow, coming down, head touching, back again, just to encourage the shoulders to do more work, and also to get used to that seesaw effect. P-bars, you can start to transition to that similar movement. So whether you're in L-sit and then you come through shoulder stand, back to L-sit, that type of thing. Again, encouraging upper body to do a lot more work and decreasing the legs doing all the work or keeping all the energy there. Okay, how to fix rounded shoulders. So normally rounded shoulders is a rounded upper back. So most people are like this. I definitely was when I started. So there, and I couldn't open up here. So I would just use a foam roller. It's like the number one thing that you'll do most of the time, and or passive hanging. So one of these, I've had this one for years. It's just an old one. I get all my clients to use those, especially if you're a bit stuck through there. So go in there, putting your shoulders, your upper back directly on the roller, and then extension. So being able to go into that position where the roller is in the mid upper part of your back, into your upper ribs or mid ribs, and then trying to keep your core switched on as you open your arms up above. If you can't do that, try it and see. If you can't do it, then work on that on a daily basis. That's massive. That will definitely help you keep your hands above your head. passive hanging. So jumping up onto a bar, doing your passive hangs. So ideally shoulder width apart, trying to open the shoulders, the scapular work, open and closing through the shoulder blades, that type of thing as a warm up to chin ups and stuff. So whenever you go on a bar or do your exercises, don't think you need to have bent arms all the time. So most people, when they jump up on a bar, we go straight into doing chin ups. When we do exercises, we bend the arms, bench press, dumbbell press, push ups, tricep dips is all about bending the arms. Think about keeping the arms straight for some of the movements. And that will definitely increase that shoulder strength and open up the upper back. Should I keep pushing my shoulders to my ears when I go under balance? No, I would relax a little bit around that. Like obviously when you're in your static handstand, we're just trying to push up all the time. So the same as if you had, think of it like you've got a weight in front of you. Oh, sorry, not a weight in front of you. You're holding a barbell above your head. So you would want to push back against the weight. So if I have a 10 kilo barbell there, I might be like this. If I have a 20 kilo barbell, I'll be like this. The heavier it is, the more I need to put the opposite force into it to keep it out of position. Same when you're on your hands. And then as I come in this direction, but I'm not thinking, so this is your underbalance, your shoulders close, so your shoulders go forwards. So I'm not thinking about that pushing away as much or pushing up, because that's going to make it very clunky through the shoulder. I want to just think maybe externally rotate a little bit, because that will help you. So if I'm doing something like a lower to planche or something, I'm not trying to keep my shoulders here the whole time. When I come forwards, it's more like a push away as opposed to a push up with the shoulders. But I don't overly think about that apart from not collapsing. I'm just going to push. Hey guys, hope you're all well. Keep firing the questions. Any other questions? Anything? Any demos you want? Presses, handstand push-ups, muscle ups. I can't do bar muscle ups in here. I can do a ring muscle up. But planches. Everyone working their planches. Do long limbs and short torso make the press easier? Yeah, it can do. It is really flexibility that's going to make it easier, or just be super strong in your planche, like planche press type movement. You basically just want to find the shortest route for you to get your hips on top of your hands for the press. So that will depend on your limb length, your strength, your confidence, your balance. So if I want to press handstand, think of hip crease here. I want to bring that on top of the hands. So if my hands are here, so if my flexibility is terrible, I'm going to have to take my shoulders forwards, and my press is going to look like that. If I have more flexibility or longer limbs, then I can get more on top of my hands and I can press like that. But basically, you want to have a look, video yourself from the side, see where your hip crease is relative to your hands, and then work out what's the shortest route for you to get your hips on top of your hands so your feet can flow. It is going to be different for everyone though. So, but I always recommend that everyone does strength work for press and flexibility. Both of them are going to slowly bring everything together to give you the press. I don't recommend you work one thing. But obviously, if you're a short amount of time training wise, the shortest route is going to help you to get there as quick as possible. And then once you've got a press, if it's a flexi one, you want to definitely make yourself more strong, then you can go into cooler presses, or not cooler, cool press variations like planche presses and stools and stuff. If you're more flexible, if you've got the strength already, then we need the flexibility to go through like stools on the floor, and just make it more efficient. So instead of doing one press, you can do 10. Now for shoulder mobility. So shoulder mobility, I would do everything around the thoracic. So the foam roller and the hanging, make that priority. Then I would add in, or do as well, skin the cats on rings or a bar. That's probably the number one thing I would do for shoulder flexibility, because it's really great straight arm strength conditioning as well. If you're not doing skin the cat, I recommend you should be. You can do it on a bar, but it's just much nicer on the rings. So basically going from a hanging position, these rings could be doing with being a little bit higher. But the cool things with the skin the cat is you can stay in a tuck, especially to start with if you're first working on it. So I can be in a tuck position, go through to German hang, stretch the shoulders down there, come back out. So that's getting that straight arm strength as well, but it's really going to hit into flexibility, especially as you go into that German hang position at the bottom. Should I do the same for overbalance hollow backs? Yeah, I would be working both of them. So I would definitely be working your toe pull and your heel pulls to initially increase that window of balance. Once you get up to a certain level and you can really hit those pretty comfortably, go further and further away from the wall, or go from a box, or if you have the balance in to really open up towards a hollow back Mexican handstand, I'd definitely do that as well. Because ideally you want to go as far as you can in one direction and as far as you can in the other direction, and then even start to do some stuff side to side as well. But that's quite advanced, but make sure you've got as big a window as you can. And that means you'll never fall out of a handstand. Or, it's very rare. Sometimes I'll get people to be quiet if it happens in class, but it's very, very rare if I can't hit a handstand. And it's not because I've got anything special. All it is I've made my window of balance as big as possible. So when I go into the handstand, I fit inside that window. So I can always just kick up, jump up, press up, wherever it is, and I'm inside my window so I don't fall over. I have 1 minute handstand, but I don't have much strength in the elevated leg pike push-up. So I would, if you can do a standard pike push-up really well, I would just try your eccentric handstand push-ups against the wall and just see how they are. And then you see if you can walk your feet back up the wall for at least one repetition. I'd work those. I like the pike push-ups. I've never really trained the pike push-ups, even though I put videos out quite a bit on them because they look cool when you do them. But as soon as you can get on the wall and do like open hip standard handstand push-ups, I would stop doing the pike push-ups unless you need them for volume. So if you can't do like 3 to 5 reps of the concentric phase of a handstand push-up, then I would keep the pike push-ups in some way. But as soon as you can do 3 to 5 reps of standard wall handstand push-ups, I'd get rid of the pike push-ups anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much. I'd keep the floor version and not overly stress about getting your feet up. It could be a flexibility thing as well. You could try raising your hands up, go to a deficit. So a slight deficit on the pike push-ups is really good. Because that gets that, instead of just stopping there. So the thing when you do your push-ups, you'd stop there. With a deficit, you'd be able to come all the way to the floor. What have I got to demo with that on? So if I do something like this, so I'm in this position, so I'm in a pike, and then I come forwards down to here, and then push back up. Like, I prefer that because my head is going lower than my hands than raising the feet up on a pike push-up. Because we want to get you to deficit handstand push-ups as quick as possible as well to get that full range of motion, even if it's an eccentric. Yeah, so this is a common one. So I consistently nail the frog to handstand press, but struggle with catching the kick up entry for handstand. I always underkick or overkick. Any advice? So I was the same as this because I had quite a bit of strength in my shoulders and my upper body already. Then things like crow to handstand weren't actually that hard for me when I started handstanding. But the catch at the top was the missing thing. So you have 2 ways of doing this. You can do it the horrible way, say horrible, But you can do it the not so nice way by going back to the wall and doing your heel pulls and your toe pulls, and just really work on increasing that window of balance and make yourself have a more control in a standard kick up to handstand. Or you can go much slower on your crow to handstand and just hang out where you're happy. So if I do a crow to handstand now, I'll show you what I mean. So I can stay slightly underbalanced. I can stay slightly bent armed. So front position, push up. So I can hang around like here in this not so good looking handstand. But look how solid I am. Look, I'm not going to fall over there. Now, if I push up, so a lot of people there would then topple over because it's like they've gone right up into this nice looking handstand, but it's like delicate and you might fall over. So you can either do those two things. You can go against the wall, heel pulls and toe pulls for repetitions, or you can go and just hang out in that slightly bent position and just do more repetitions and time there. And eventually your balance is going to increase just because you're hanging out closer to the handstand. Okay, I think I have the flexibility and strength for a press handstand, but I can't seem to put it all together. Would it be better to keep doing drills or just keep trying the whole thing? So really slow eccentric press is going to give you the answer to that. So basically, if you've got all the bits you need for a press handstand, you should be able to do a very, very slow eccentric freestanding press. If you can't, that's going to show you where you drop. So I'm guessing you're going to drop somewhere in that movement. Most people drop at the bottom. Then you just need to work out how you can train what exercises you need to fill the gap. So if I do a eccentric press handstand now, so if I do a straddle, so starting in the straight position, coming down as slow as you can. So no drop through the movement, all the way down. So this is the big bit for most people, is where the tippy toes just kiss the floor. There. So normally someone will drop before that point. Most people will drop if they've got quite good control at the very end. And if you don't condition that very end bit with the right exercises, then you'll never press. So you need to find out how you can fill the gap. And that's why I'm not a big fan of lots of people doing, or people spending a majority of their time on high box, partial range press handstand, thinking they're going to get their press handstand. That is one exercise and it's a really good exercise, but it's missing the other half. So I would definitely do that assessment and see where you're missing the gap on that press handstand. Okay, so with the hollow back overbalance, yeah. So again, I don't think too much about relaxing the shoulders. It's more about pushing the opposite direction. So trying to open the shoulder in the hollow back. So I'm trying to think of opening the shoulder, and it's still a push, but it's not this push, it's this push. So you're opening differently. So it's a different focus. A good way of doing it, so if you specifically want like a Mexican or as a hollow back, so you put your feet on some stool bars or a box or something there's a good height, not too deep, and then push the shoulders in the opposite direction. So if this is your shoulder, if that's in a normal handstand position, you bring the legs down towards the box, and then you push in the opposite direction and really push out into the handstand, or in the opposite direction to the handstand, which will counterbalance the legs, which will open you up into that back position. So it's definitely not a like collapsing or turn them off. It's more just a different direction. Your thoughts on serratus anterior strengthening? Yes, so we definitely need a really strong serratus to just bind everything all together through there. But I wouldn't isolate it. I'm not a big fan on isolating any muscles. I would think about conditioning it when you do other movements. So if you're doing deep tuck handstands, if you're doing skin the cat on the on the bars, you're doing front lever pulls, if you're doing eccentric presses, basically all the strength movements, you just want to make sure that you have good scapular control, and then all the muscles that surround the shoulder need to be conditioned as well. So you want to be doing like planche leans, making sure your shoulder blades are not showing at all. So a lot of people, when they do their planche leans or even their planches, they collapse through the shoulders and you can see your shoulder blades. So it might be like your 1 rep max, we might see some shoulder blades stick out just because it's not your prettiest one, because it's your 1 rep max. But when you're doing your sets and reps, you want to be hiding those shoulder blades. So it should be that you can't see them. We don't want to be like winging in the shoulders. So yeah, psoriasis is very important to train, but I wouldn't isolate it. So the only time I would recommend people isolate muscles is if they have an injury and for some reason they can't do it. But even then I would try and do the big movement, but easier variation of it. So try and do a regression of it. It's a bit like saying, should you train, do you need a core for a press handstand? Like I wouldn't do any specific core training for press handstand. I would do press handstand drills and then other movements like toes to bar and things like that. So bigger movements, not isolated movements. Why does a banana handstand hurt your back, but a Mexican hollow back doesn't? Some people do get low back pain in the Mexican hollow back position, but normally it's because the banana dumps into the low back, and the low back for people tends to be their weak link. But the Mexican hollow back handstand goes into the upper back thoracic area. And because you're going into an area normally is tight for people, you can hang out there because you're hanging out in your end range. If someone goes into like a scorpion or something like that, where they have the shoulders forwards, but they get the extension from the low back, that's where they'll hurt their low back, or they'll feel their low back. And the same in a banana handstand. A banana handstand basically is a weaker or a more open scorpion handstand, and again just dumps into the low back. So that's really common. But if you're feeling your low back in a slight banana handstand, then it probably means that your something else is out of balance. Normally hip flexors and stuff are just very switched on. Any wrist rehab exercises, stretches you would recommend? Again, I would try and do your wrist strengthening stuff in the movements. So it depends what you're working towards. Where you have to be a little bit careful if you're doing lots of pulling skills and pushing skills at the same time, especially muscle ups, one arm chin work and stuff. Because obviously a muscle up, we need flexion. So we need the hand this way. Handstands, we need the wrist the opposite direction. So the only time I've had a bit of pain through my forearms and wrists is when I was really smashing like back rolls on the rings and harder false grip demanding exercises. So if you're not doing that, I would do things like it depends what you're rehabbing from in terms of how weak the wrist is. But I would just go into like top of push-up, scapular push-ups, protraction holds, that sort of thing after just a general wrist warm-up. So real basic wrist warm-up. And I would learn to peel through the fingers, the forearm and the hands so if I'm doing the hand, I peel up and down. So I'm trying to keep like some of my palm on the floor now, and then I roll back down and then roll the fingers up. I'm not a big fan. You'll see a lot of people will do first knuckle raises. I'm not a big fan of making that joint loose. I'd rather have it tighter and then have a connection. So all of that is working. So if I do a planche or a press and I lean forwards, I'm trying to peel the palm off the floor as opposed to close at the knuckle or close at the wrist and make a sharp joint. So it's hard to give like rehab stuff advice and things without knowing more details. And also with the wrist, a big one that a lot of people forget about is that a lot of the time up the chain is too tight. So the wrist is actually taking the stress because the shoulders and the thoracic are too tight, or your pecs are too tight. So making sure that you're open through the rest of the body can actually make the wrists much happier. You can even get it sometimes where someone's hips and that are really out of balance, and then they feel it at the other end of the body because you through compensation. So I just watch that, but I wouldn't do too much just playing around with the wrist. I would do like more global exercises, hanging, that sort of thing, and just make it easier, like less intense. Have you ever heard of someone having stiff fingers? I know in a handstand you should have the spider grip. Yeah, so I wouldn't worry at all. It's a bit like if we took everyone's shoes and socks off and got everyone to do squats, even weighted squats, like back squats and front squats, everyone's feet would look quite different. They would turn out slightly. They might even have one foot that turns out more than the other foot. Some people have more external rotation. People will be doing different things. Same with handstands. If you look at, especially different parts of the world, if you look in gymnastics and circus and stuff, some people really cup the hand and have like a hole underneath. Some people flat, some people spread the fingers. I wouldn't worry. There's some people that one arm handstand, like with their hands, like I can't even do it. So they have their fingers together and their hand cupped up really high. So it creates like this dish underneath. And they've got crazy one arms, way better than me. And they're doing like figures and stuff in that position. So I wouldn't worry unless there's pain. If there's pain, we need to work out what's going on and fix it. But you can nail enough balance with any hand position. You just want to make sure that you're getting the most of it. So like when you're doing a one arm handstand, being aware to push through the thumb and finger when you start going in that direction, instead of just being like numb there and not pushing back in the thumb and finger is a common one. But with a two arm handstand, we just obviously want to have control when the weight goes into the heel, control when the weight goes into the fingers, and then most of the time trying to be somewhere in the middle. So I wouldn't overly worry about that. Should I always lock my hips doing a handstand, or can I use balance too? So basically, we want to make your hands and your shoulders that switched on when you do a handstand that your hips and your legs can do whatever they want to do. So basically, your hips and your legs should be able to flop around like this because they're not doing anything. It's a bit like when you stand on your feet, you can move your upper body around, you can throw and swing your arms around all over the place, you can move your head about and you don't fall over. We want to make the handstand like that. So your shoulders and your arms are doing everything, and then your hips and your legs can just flop about. In reality, when people are learning, they need to learn this fixed position. That's why we teach like hollow body positions and backline drills and things to make the body one segment, and then we can teach you how to handstand. But once you can handstand really well, you can make the rest of your body really floppy. So yes and no. So it depends what level you are. I would have a goal of being able to do both, but you shouldn't. It'll be totally evident if you try and just relax the hips and your hips and legs are trying to balance the handstand, because you'll just fall over, because it will just take over and pull you out of the handstand. Have you ever tried pure dieting for fat loss? No. My diet isn't fantastic. It's 70% good probably. And I'm definitely not an expert with weight loss and stuff, but I basically just ride it. I have found as I get older, because I'm 46 now, I have to be a little bit more careful what I eat. But I'm definitely not an expert with diet. And I don't really like talking about it on the channel because there's lots of people with very strong opinions on it. It just turns into everyone arguing in the comments and stuff about dieting and what food you should eat and stuff. So it's definitely, I'll leave that to other channels. And I don't even really coach clients in any way on nutrition, apart from, stop eating crap and try and eat more good food, and try and have that balance. So the crap stuff is a very small percentage of your diet. Guys, any other questions before I sign off? We're kicking 40 minutes now. I'm happy to demo stuff or show anything. Not too strenuous. I'm about to go to the gym, but. Yes, definitely. So will I increase my underbalance window of balance if I get the straight arm press handstand? Yes, definitely. I always recommend, I don't tell people they have to, but if you're doing any type of handstands balance, I'd recommend that you do strength handstand push-ups and press as well, just because it is going to make your balance really, really good. I'm always surprised if someone wants to have a balanced handstand and has got no interest in doing press or a handstand push-up. I think it's more likely that they don't believe they can get it. So, but I recommend that everyone trains the press and handstand push-up in some way, even if they're still in the early stages of learning to balance the handstand. I'd recommend they do some sort of strength work towards press and handstand push-up. You just don't want it to take over. So the person that needs a better freestanding handstand, if they start doing way too much handstand push-up or press work, then obviously they might get a press or a handstand push-up, but then they won't be able to balance it at the top. So you want to be sort of doing them at the same time. But definitely that will increase your underbalance window. And I'd recommend, if you can, to do like planche press type stuff as well, just to get really comfortable being a little bit over. Okay, could you demo an eccentric wall-assisted handstand push-up for beginners? Yeah, I will do it, but the downside on this wall is that it's a brick wall and I've got bare feet. So ideally you want to have socks and a smooth wall. So the big thing is with an eccentric, if you're new to these, is your escape out at the bottom, because it's really uncomfortable to get out of a handstand push-up eccentric at the bottom, and it's much worse against the wall because you haven't got much space. So think that you're coming down to a triangle, so your head should be in front of your hands. We want to have external rotation. So I want to have my hands like this, not like this. So definitely don't want the elbows flaring out when you do this. You want to make sure that your hips and your body is positive away from the wall and not negative, so you're not falling back towards the wall. So if I'm in, so I'd probably go around there somewhere. So my hands are externally rotated. I'm leaning back into the wall, but the body's one segment. So I want to be more positive, not back towards the wall. So the toes should always be light on the wall, and then my shoulders come forwards. Now I start to bend the elbows come back in towards each other. External rotation, head kisses the floor, notice the triangle. And now that's the hard bit, is how do I get out, especially on this wall, without taking all the skin off my legs. So that's where it's nice if you've got a smooth wall and you've got socks or something on, because you can slide out as you come down. Just let us know if you've got any questions on that eccentric handstand push-up. Do you recommend to learn the handstand first on the low P-bars? Yeah, it's just personal choice with the P-bars. Floor, some people, like some coaches, are really against using blocks or P-bars and things. I just want people to have fun with their training. Obviously, if they've got a specific goal that demands being on the floor or something, but you know, there's lots of people that learn and stick with P-bars or stick with blocks and enjoy their training and not even worried about going on the floor, and that's cool. Bar handstand easier on larger diameter bar, so straight bar handstand. Yes and no. So there's more surface area on a fatter bar, but a smaller bar you can pull yourself around on. So like if I'm balancing on, if I handstand on one of these are just tricky because they're so high. This is probably a good diameter for my hands. Because I can do that with the wrists when I'm balancing. The tricky bit with that bar is just getting up. Height-wise, I can't do it in here because the roof. I definitely need to be in a straighter handstand when I do that. I actually find P-bar handstands more comfortable if I press into it. So if I'm on P-bars, like at the park or something, I have my feet on one set of P-bars and my hands on the other, and then press into it, because I can just really grip and get a little bit more control underbalanced. So I would just play around with that and see what you find more comfortable. You can try like a crow or some other arm balances on bars first. If you're not comfortable in jumping up, just find a low bar. And if you've got a portable bar that you could move close to a wall, is good. You can do it on those P-bars. You just got to be careful they don't slip when you enter and exit on them. How can I improve my handstands? It all depends where you're at. but I just, if you're not handstanding, if you're not freestanding yet, heel pulls, toe pulls, chest or handstands. They're your three main ones. Obviously, mobility, get some upper body strength to check that you can take your weight in your hands. So assess yourself. I've got quite a few beginner videos on my YouTube that just takes you through those. So just heel pull, toe pull, chest or handstand, and just drill them. And if you get good at them, you'll be able to balance off the wall for sure. But they'll be good as an assessment tool as well to see where you're at. Most people will start with chest or handstand and heel pulls only. So that's back to wall, and then chest or handstand they'll add in when they feel comfortable enough, because that's a bit scary when you pull yourself away from the wall. Do you still train specifically for balance, window of balance to maintain it? Look, I'm coaching so much that my two-arm balance work is just looked after all the time, because I'm demoing. If you see how much I've demoed, we've been on for 45 minutes now. I've done 2 Zoom sessions this morning as well. So I've demoed stuff in those Zoom sessions. So, today's my quieter day. I do more work online today. And I've already done 3 sessions now where I've been demoing stuff. And because I'm demoing like kick up catches, heel pulls, toe pulls, more the basic two-arm work, often when I do a class, if I'm doing a conditioning chest or handstand, so anyone who's can hold a 60-second plus chest or handstand, I get them to do that freestanding. I'll often join in with them as well. And sometimes we'll increase time on that to like 2 minutes. So I'm getting that, all that reps and sets in when I'm not actually training. So I'm doing that daily for most days. And then I'm doing YouTube videos and Instagram videos and stuff. So that's all stuff that isn't my training. And then when I do train, it tends to be more, at the moment, it's a lot of handstand push-up work. I'm doing some planches with one-arm handstands. So if you're doing one-arm handstands, you're kicking up, you're catching on two-arm handstands, you're showing control, you're opening to shapes, and then you're going into your one-arm work. So yeah, anyone who's doing one-arm handstands is just doing so much balance work that they constantly are doing it. So in answer to that, yes, but not programmed reps and sets. Do I think I'll lose my handstand if I stopped doing it for a year? I got no idea. I think I'd keep a two-arm handstand. I might have to condition it. What would be probably hardest for me is my mobility. I'd have to keep my some sort of mobility work up. My mobility when I started, so when I was 37, I really struggled to take my arms above my head. Couldn't sit in a squat. Definitely couldn't sit in a shuttle pancake. So those are the things that stopped me doing cool handstands and stuff earlier on, was mobility. So I had to hit that really hard. So if I did stop, I reckon that would be the thing that would get me, is the mobility. So I'll probably still have a banana handstand in a year's time, but it would be that. Do you plan to do any handstand workshops or handstands retreat one day? Yes, definitely. It's hard with the kids at the moment to get away and do anything, but I am coming over to the UK in August. So I'll be putting out some feelers soon to get a couple of workshops in August in the UK. So anyone who is that direction. And then I'm open to doing stuff in the future. It's just is helping now. So I've basically reduced to 2 days a week at the gym. So I did co-own a gym before full time. I've pulled away from that now to work on my online stuff and my workshops and my online clients and things. So I will be increasing workshops initially in Australia. And then, like I say, if anyone's in the UK that would be interested in hosting me when I come out then, if not, I'm going to look for a space or a couple of spaces to run some workshops there. And then I'm open to talking about other things depending on where and when and how. It's just tricky. Now life's getting back to normal after COVID, then we can start making some plans like that. So I'd love to. I was going to do some online ones as well. The plan is to do some Zoom classes. At the moment, I do Zoom PT, which works really well. It's just tricky to get the time zones correct to do classes. And with the classes, they're a bit like the live sessions. I want to make them where there's a bit of a commitment. because the live sessions are cool, but obviously people just come in for a little bit and disappear and go back out. We'll watch the recordings and stuff. Ideally, with the Zoom classes, I get a commitment. So there'd be obviously a payment, which would commit someone and then get them to like do homework and be involved in the session instead of it just being a follow along and not being involved, whether that's sending me videos or splitting the screen and having live sessions with a small group of people. I was thinking of doing those having balance sessions, having handstand, push-up specific, press handstand, one-arm handstand, that type of thing. It's in the to-do list. So, but if anyone's keen to do anything, they want to drive it and say what times and days and things which would be good for them, I can see if we can get some live stuff working as well, because obviously the live allows everyone to do workshop style stuff. But it'd be great to get a group of people that are really dedicated to that one thing. So if they want to achieve press handstand, muscle up, planche, whatever it is, and then we have sort of a group that keeps each other consistent and accountable, and then I can do some workshop style live sessions. I think that would be really cool. It's on the to-do list. Guys, any other questions? It'd be cool if we could get this 9 more minutes. We'll do a 60 minutes. I don't think I've done a 60-minute live before. And then I'm going to have to eat before the gym. So any other questions? How do we breathe when we do a basic isometrics like handstand, even floor moves such as rocking in a plank? So anything that, here's a good example. So anything that you're holding for a certain amount of time where you're not calling it a strength movement, even like a plank or something, we don't really want to be thinking of that like a strength movement. So if I go into a handstand now, so I'm in the handstand, so notice that I'm still talking. Probably this is like, I don't know, 40-50% intensity. So I've got another 50% if I wanted to do like a strength movement or something, but I can still hold the conversation. I'm breathing relatively the same way. So that's what we want to get to. I try and recommend that everyone who's doing chest wall handstands and things talk while they're doing it. So that's what I'd recommend. You get to that point where like chest wall handstands, hollow body positions, support positions. So I call them home positions. So if you're in a home position, you should be able to return there and breathe. So say like, if you look at like a circus performer that's doing an act, and maybe they'll do one-arm handstands, handstand push-ups, they'll croc to handstand and things. When they get into their two-arm handstand, that's where they actually take a breather and rest. So if you want to get up to like some cool levels of the calisthenics and bodyweight stuff, you should have the number of home positions all over the place where you can basically chill out, rest, get a breather, and then you go into a strength movement where you actually might even be holding your breath, and then you go back to your home positions and breathe. So that's what I recommend with the breath work. It gets very confusing when you start looking at breathing in or out on the concentric or eccentric component of the movement. Because we also, in like some of these movements, we want extension, and breathing in extends the body, but sometimes we want to breathe out at that time if we're on the effort and that sort of thing. So it's very confusing. But I would definitely work on those home positions, chest wall handstand, hollow back positions, things like that, and try and breathe as normal as you can. If you can't, then that's not a conditioning hold for you, and you need to make it slightly easier. Do you recommend weed post-workout? I mean, relax your body as best you can post-workout. Nutrition, I would go with. I'd always recommend that, number one thing. And then sleep as best you can. I've got like lots of kids, and but prioritizing sleep and nutrition, I would do number one. And then anything else you want to do to relax the body, which you find works, then obviously that's a benefit. I think you can have some negative effects if you, especially if you want to train at a very high level, if you start using other things to help you recover and train, even like supplements and pre-workouts and stuff, because you just get those spikes and dips all over the place. So yeah, I'd be nutrition and sleep would be the ones I'd recommend, and lots of coffee. How can I fall safely from high P bars? Get super confident in a shoulder stand. So a shoulder stand can be your like catch home position. And the cool thing is when you're doing that, you can even make it look like you meant to do it. And then twisting out where you keep your hand on something. So a lot of people, when they bail out of a handstand on the floor, they turn their hand like a cartwheel when they come out. You can't do that on P-bars or anything elevated. So you twist the body and your hands stay on position. So I would just practice that at a lower height first and make sure you can twist out, keeping the hands on, or at least your hands on until your feet get lower than your hips. And then you can let go of your hands because you'll land on your feet. But that is just a practice thing and just slowly increasing the height. Do I get a program to use for training when I pay for PT? It depends what you do. So PT, so if I do a Zoom session PT, it's that Zoom session. So sometimes I'll send some videos and stuff afterwards. I don't do a written program as part of the Zoom sessions. That's your time. But whatever you want to do in that time, that could be a program design Zoom session. So where we go for more of a program as opposed to actually training. So that's just basically half an hour of my time for the Zoom sessions. But I do sell programs that come with the online coaching where you can send me videos and then I'll critique the video. So basically what I do is you send me your videos of the program that I've written for you. I video the screen of you doing the work, and then I might show you things or just point out things and give you feedback on the exercises as you do them. So my program, my online coaching includes the video critiques, a written program, and that's either one skill, which is the cheaper version, or it's multi-skill, which is the more expensive one, where we work on presses and handstand push-ups and balance and lots of things. But the Zoom sessions, the half an hour Zoom sessions, that's just for that block of time. I do often send YouTube videos and things, depending on what we're working. And then if someone's doing multiple Zoom sessions with me, so I've got clients that basically train with me 1-2 times a week, and they're doing it every week on Zoom, I'll obviously invest a bit more time in them because they're training with me more often. So it depends on the individual. Like to question, do you get mad at clients who didn't seek PT when an injury occurred and now have a long-term nagging injury? I actually prefer clients to take ownership of their injuries and not just expect someone else to fix them, whether that's a PT or a physio or a chiro or someone. So I get more disappointed when clients aren't willing to do, they're injured and they're not willing to do a bit of homework, whether that's foam rolling or hanging or doing something to help themselves. That can be frustrating sometimes. And they expect, they're going to see a physio and the physio is telling them to rest. So they just literally rest with their feet up. So that sort of thing. So not too much about not seeking a PT. Like if you're if you're injured, then you obviously need an injury that's not getting better. You need to get it checked by someone who's trained. I think that's the big thing. Go see a physio or a chiro or someone to get advice, but then take ownership of it yourself. What do you think is the hardest handstand variation, grip, hand placement, and what was the hardest one that you can do? I can do one arm handstands, which is that's the hardest variation. I can do like a 40-second one arm on my right hand side. Straight body would be the hardest one. So I got 10 seconds plus once I'm warmed up, especially on blocks with a arm by my side, one arm handstand. That would probably be the hardest balance skill that I can do. Harder than that would probably be like figures hard, but then even a figure can be maybe someone's not their hardest position if they've got the flexibility to do it. I can't get anywhere close to figure mainly because of flexibility. So that would be like balance movements. A one arm stool to press is really impressive. So off the floor, full planche. Depends whether you go strength movements. I can do a dead press on the floor, which I think is probably my best party trick and normally blows people's mind when you do that one because it just looks impossible where you lay down on the floor. I can't do it cold. Lay down on your front and then you push and lift your legs up and go up into handstand. So the dead press. It's interesting that different things impress different people. Depends where you come from. So I've been to circus shows and stuff, and you get, the stuff that gets the round of applause and people screaming and shouting is normally not the hardest skill. So it's interesting to see what certain people find easy or hard. Some people think press handstand is out of this world, and I actually now I can do like 15 reps of press handstand. I actually don't think it's that hard. I just think it's a case of getting everything in the right place, and everyone can do it. So it's an interesting one, that one. Be interested to do a video on that actually, and like talk about what's seen as the hardest things and what actually is, and get different people's opinion on it. It would be different flexibility and strength and stuff. I was able to back to wall handstand push up for some reps. When I tried handstand press, I feel impossible. I can fold pike, but leaning forward just feels impossible to raise my legs. Yeah, so I would recommend you do chest to wall handstand push-ups, and that will work. That will help you for your press handstand, because that's going to encourage you to take your shoulders over your hands, or your weight forwards towards overbalance, but keep your feet in the opposite direction. So that's where the back to wall and chest to wall is very different. So back to wall handstand push-up, where you're collapsing, or not collapsing, your feet are on the wall, so you're like everything's overbalanced, and you can sort of push it up and down like that. So it's just like a brute strength movement, or even you can use a bit of a kip like they do in CrossFit. I would chest to wall handstand push up, and that will help you for your press handstand. And you could even do like a hybrid one there. So you could do like go into your press position, because if you've got the strength of the handstand push up, and I can't get my feet off there, say you're in that position, if I bend my arms there, let my feet come off, then I can press. So using your handstand push-up strength, if you practice chest to wall, can help you get over that. So what's your body fat percentage? I have no idea what my body fat percentage is. It's way too high. I will say that. I would like to be a lot leaner. Like I say, at 46, though, it's pretty hard keeping super lean unless you have zero carbs and stuff, and keep your calories pretty low. I don't think, like, obviously, if you're overweight, then all these bodyweight skills are going to be harder. But I've got more body fat than most people that are working press handstands, and most of the time I can bang out way more press handstands than they can. So yes, it does matter, but I don't think it's everything. You can have some sort of balance with it all. I think if you spend too much time getting as lean as possible, you're probably taken away from your strength training and your reps and sets of the calisthenics work or skills you're going towards. So yes, you might have a better looking, less body fat body that on paper would be easier to do the skills, but I think there's a happy medium somewhere in the middle. So leaner, but I'm making sure that you're doing enough work with the handstand skills that you're working towards. It depends again on personal goals. Last question. I have a left hip arthritis with 2 leg exercise isometrics you recommend. It all depends where you're tight and where you're loose. I'd give everyone some sort of hip extension, ideally deadlift, if they want to keep their hips happy. But you'd have to get someone to assess you to give you those exercises. It's really hard to give exercises when someone's saying they've got no challenges or no restrictions online without seeing anything. You can give slight recommendations, but I would recommend that you see someone in person to get a couple of exercises. Hip bridging, hip extension, straddle up type or straddle good morning type movements would probably be the best, but you'd have to see how your body feels and where your tightnesses and flexibility is. I think a lot of people's issues are that they have areas in their body that are just way too tight, and then they compensate throughout the body. So that would be my recommendation, is get someone to actually assess you in person and give you those and give you advice around that. Should I contract my core as hard as possible to try to find alignment to rest my lower body on top of the shoulder? What's that do there? So I don't think about core in any way at all when I'm doing a press handstand. So I think about getting the hip up and over and getting the weight into the upper back and shoulder. There's at no point am I actually contracting my core like a sit-up type movement. So you sort of have to pull yourself in with the hip, but even then it's not like it's a very different feeling to a sit-up or something for the abdominals. It's more about, just, so let me do a press handstand, see if I can explain it. So here I'm just trying to bring my hip. So here it's all about getting weight into my shoulders and upper back. At no point am I like flexing inwards with the abdominals to like close at the hip. I'm not even like that's, let's say like my legs are loose and all my weight is into the back here. So into my upper back and shoulders. And it's like my legs are loose because the hip is far enough over. So it's a funny sensation. It's one that if people do too many of that one where you have your feet up on the box and try and drag yourself over into it, it's there like that encourages you to pull in with the compression too much. Because you got to remember that when you stand up, that's what you're doing, you're standing up. The last thing you want to do is contracting your core to close because you're trying to stand up. So it's like you're trying to do the opposite thing if that's the case. So you want to try and open. It's a bit like a deadlift. So no one really talks about coming off the bottom of the deadlift by flexing. It's an opening. So we want the posterior muscles to open you. So you load the back and the shoulders and then you open the legs. It's a confusing one. If you do the right drills in the right order and the right ones for you, you don't need to really worry about core strength. You can do like toes to bar, that sort of thing. That I recommend people train, but that would be the closest thing to core exercise that I would do. What's your favorite surface for doing handstands? Floor, yoga block, parallel bars, straight bar? It depends what I'm doing. If it used to be when I wanted to guarantee a one-arm handstand, I would grab a block and use it. But now I'm using blocks a little bit less, and it's probably not the case now. I'll probably just pick floor. I'll probably just do it on the floor. But a harder surface than a softer surface. So wood of some sort would probably be my favorite because it has that sort of best of both, where it's not soft in any way, but it has a bit of give in it, where like concrete floor can get a bit much sometimes. Thanks. How about holding a regular handstand? Is maintaining a posterior pelvic tilt, needs to contract core or suck in the belly? I feel confused about the mind muscle connection when I'm upside down. So if you do toe pulls, heel pulls off the wall, you want just enough contraction to connect to the upper body and the lower body. So I think the lower body is stacked on top of the upper body and it can disconnect. So when I push with my fingers to bring the heels off the wall in a heel pull, I want to make sure that I have enough connection throughout the body. Now, if you're loose naturally in that position, then you need to connect it. So again, if you think of like standing and then holding a barbell above your head, the heavier the barbell, the more you're going to have to turn all your muscles on to keep your body as one. So the weight dissipates through the body into the floor. It's exactly the same in a handstand. You just need to turn your core on just enough to keep your body as one piece, one segment, and then you can move around. You don't want it flopping around like that. So it depends on the individual. The only time I rarely go into a strong posterior tilt. If I'm lower into like a 90-degree handstand push-up and I'm trying to stop myself extending, or if I'm trying to get my best looking line for an Instagram photo or something, I'll go into a strong posterior tilt and really tuck under. Apart from that, I don't even think about turning the core on in a normal handstand. I just bought blocks recently. Awesome. Blocks are fantastic. You have so much fun on blocks. You can do drills on there where you're having fun with the skill of the thing instead of focusing on the drill, like the balance aspect and that. You can just play around with it. It's good. And then there's some great drills you can do on them as well if you want to make it more serious. How much will belly fat hold you back from progress on press handstands and planche work? I'm 5'7" and 150 pounds. I don't have washboard abs like many athletes. I have some love handles. Look, I've got love handles. I've definitely got it. You can tell like I'm soft. I don't think it's an issue. It will be easier if you're slightly lighter, but the main thing is just doing the work and doing the training. I'm just under 80 kilos and I'm 5'7" or just under. So yeah, I wouldn't particularly worry about it. I do have, like, I've got a thicker upper body, so I get a lot of my weight is there anyway. I'm never going to be 65 kilos. But it is going to make body weight exercises easier if you have lower body fat percentage. But most people just aren't training enough, consistently enough, to get the results that they want. So I would focus more on consistency of practice, training the right exercises, and if you can tidy up the food a little bit and decrease a little bit of body fat, that's going to help. But I wouldn't overly worry about it. I wouldn't let that hold you back. I just get on with doing the training. Okay, guys, I'm going to sign off. This is the longest one ever, 1 hour 10. We hit a record. So any feedback, let me know. Let me know what videos you want to see. If you need any coaching, reach out on my website, www.paultwyman.com.au. Any feedback will be appreciated. Any ways I can help you. I've got way more time now to do more of the online stuff. I've got some courses and ideas coming out. I'm going to do some workshops. Like I say, I'm coming to the UK in August. So if anyone's about, let's chat, do some PT, do some workshops. Reach out if you need a hand, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, guys.